In Grand Prairie, as well as here in Garland, it's a situation where the incumbent mayor is seeking re-election in a runoff. For Garland, this marks the first time that the mayor has had to seek re-election in a runoff in the city's history. Rufus Rupert, the incumbent, will be seeking his fourth term as mayor, facing challenger Don Raines. Rupert outpolled Raines in the April 4th election by only 182 votes, thus forcing the election into a runoff. It was even closer in Grand Prairie, where incumbent Joe Caldwell, seeking a second term, received only 108 more votes than challenger Bill Bowles, a Dallas attorney. Fred Catron ran third in Grand Prairie, forcing the election into a runoff situation. The polls in each of these cities will close at 7 o'clock tonight, then the counting begins. We'll have complete results from all the elections tonight on our 10 o'clock newscast. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Garland.
One, use the same voting location that was used for the April 1, 1972 school trustee election. Exception is precinct 227. The voting location for this precinct has been changed from the Dreyfus Club to the St. John's Episcopal Church, 848 Harder Road. 2, voter must have his 1972 voter registration certificate. Use the same certificate that was used in the April 1, 1972 school trustee election. Do not use the postcard that was mailed. 3, please observe voter location list, which will be published in the newspapers on Friday, April 21 and Saturday, April 22nd, 1972. 4, now this is a very important statement here. If the voter has a question pertaining to voting location, please call 824-5251.
Well, we are not planning that quite that far away, although we have, of course, if you reflect back over the Apollo program, you see all of the Apollo flights through the communication satellite system which we operate. And the whole world watched those first steps on the moon live through satellite. If you're watching the Apollo 16 flight in progress, what you see comes through the communications satellite system which we operate.
Realizing that I couldn't win it, after having come to the conclusion that I couldn't win it, I just got upset, and I'm sorry, I can't help it.
Not much, except he's supposed to be big and strong. Take a real good shot. What they say.
Well, yeah, but the last guy you fought was supposed to be big and strong and take a real good shot.
Yeah. Well, I hope this one doesn't turn out like that one.
Do you have any assurance that that the fella you're going to fight has a little more talent than the last one you did?
No. I don't. You know, this wasn't supposed to be the main event.
Right.
You know, and then circumstances dictated that they make it the main event, so I'm just going along with them.
You know, James, the last time, gosh, I can't even remember now, first or second round knockout, and apparently you were about as frustrated as the fans were that night.
Well, the guy wouldn't fight. I was coming in the fight, and I was all built up for a barn burner, you know, for 3 or 4 rounds, and then the guy comes out, and I had a hard time catching him. I had a hard time ever hitting him. Finally, I was just waiting on him so I wouldn't chase him and tire myself out. And that's the only time that I really hit him is when he'd come into me.
Well, when you get a guy like that, it doesn't do your career any good, does it? It's a knockout on the record, of course, but you need the work.
Right. I would have liked for that fight to have gone 3 or 4 more rounds, just so I could have learned more about a situation like that.
Every time that phony opponent of mine moves, there he goes in the newspaper. He was on News 8 Exception. He came back with everything he said the next night on the news. I was on Channel 13 the other night, and we had a hot debate with Oscar Mosley, and the newspapers didn't find a reason to use that. And all I asked that man to do is to tell the people of Oak Cliff and Grand Prairie how he felt on busing, and he wouldn't do it. He was scared to do it, yet these are the people he's supposed to be serving, and he wouldn't answer. And nobody found a reason to use it. So that's it. And I've been through too much. My family's been through too much, and I just want to get out of it. And secondly, even if I won, there's not much I can do with that mess down there. You got a bunch of spineless politicians down there.
Either Dr. Foster intends to resign from his position at the Southwestern Medical School, or he intends to resign from the school board if he is elected, with his successor to be appointed by the board. And this, I feel, would deprive the electorate of choosing their own school board trustee. I think the people in the Dallas Independent School District are entitled to know which job Dr. Foster intends to quit, and they are entitled to know it before Saturday's election.
Oh, yeah, it's been excellent. We've had, of course, we were fortunate. The offense always takes a little longer to get going than a defense. You can just line a guy up and tell him, go tackle a ball carrier. Well, offense, though, has to learn to block, and they have to learn techniques that are different, and it takes them a little longer to gel. So far, we've had the best of it, but that's more because it takes offense longer to get everything straight.
Any individuals or two that have stuck out in your mind so far?
Well, Carey at the middle linebacker has done an outstanding job. We've got a bunch of kids that have done a good job, but Carey, I'd have to say, would be number one because we weren't really expecting it. It was such a surprise. You know, he came here last year from junior college and didn't really play a lot last year. And we put him in the middle and just told him go get the tackle, and believe me, he does that.
Would you then agree with Coach Fry's summation that we're going to have a darn good defensive team next year here at SMU?
Oh, yeah, I believe we are. A lot of things enter into defense that, well, it's hard to measure. These young kids, how much they can improve, like Kelcher, the freshman kid, big kid, can move, how much his youth is going to hurt him. You know, how he'll let the mistakes affect him. There's no doubt he's going to make some, and if he doesn't worry about them, it's like all the rest of them. If they don't worry about mistakes and worry about the next play, then we'll have a good defensive team. If you get them so conscious of mistakes, though, that it takes away their initiative and their recklessness, then we wouldn't have. So our job is to not get them to worry and let them relax and go play football.
There are 6 different companies that plan to submit bids to the city of Fort Worth for the management service contract with the city to operate the bus system. The first year of operation, the city expects, according to City Manager Roger Line, to operate in the red, about $750,000 worth. If you add that to $3 million in bonds approved in the election on April 11th to purchase the bus system and improve the bus system, the city will have to raise taxes to pay for it. City Manager Roger Line gave an estimate of how much ad valorem tax will have to be raised.
As I recall, and please, I'm recalling from some time back, that figure is approximately 7 cents, but I can't be absolutely certain of that, I'm sorry.
The city has indicated that they plan to take over the bus system in June or July of this year. The president of Fort Worth Transit Company, Claude Wilkerson, says the sooner the better. I asked him if he feels the city will ever be able to operate the bus system at a profit.
Well, I think possibly in time to come that they can. I don't think they can do it in 1 year, 2 years, but in time to come, I think that they can.
It will be several months, possibly even as long as a year, before a physical difference in the bus company is noticed after the city takes over. That is, new buses on the streets. It will probably take at least a year to get the new buses off the assembly line. The city plans to spend at least half of the $9 million in bond money and money from the federal government on new buses. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
In 1955, Mike Walker was an airman stationed in Korea. His weight, about 190 pounds. While there, he started experimenting with drugs, mostly smoking opium in the barracks. When he returned to the States later, he began to use all sorts of drugs. In the early 1960s, still on drugs, he began to eat compulsively. No one seems to know why. He began to gain weight. It rose 300 to 500 and higher. At 780 pounds, he became bedridden. His weight continued to climb to 900, to 1,000. A year ago, it peaked at 1,187 pounds. Today, Mike Walker has started what he hopes will be the road back to a normal life. Under a doctor's care, his weight has dropped to 920 pounds. He travels the country in a specially designed trailer, unable to move from his specially designed bed. His hope is to show the grotesque effect the drugs has had on his body in hopes that it will deter others from the illegal use of drugs. When I talked with him today, he had this message for the world.
Just don't experiment with any illegal drugs whatsoever. I said, with results, I mean, it might not happen to them what had happened to me, but it can happen in different ways. Their mind or something, it'll just affect them the rest of their lives.
They definitely related our doctrine, first of all, to Scripture, then to the tradition of the church, then to personal experience, which has always been a major Methodist understanding, and then to reason. If you take these four guidelines, you immediately know where the doctrine of the church really is. This is quite important for the future. I believe that we will find that doctrine will become one of the great expressions of the church over social issues in the coming years of the Methodist Church.
There's Bobby. Yeah, I'm gonna get him. Yeah. a behavioral modification class or school, as has been suggested by the administration, that would seem to be the best way to keep him in school, and yet to take some corrective measures to take him out of the situation, you know, where the problem was caused, or where he was causing problems.
As far as I know, there's no reason for Dr. Foster to resign from the Dallas School Board, never has been. It's completely legal for him to serve and will remain completely lawful and legal for him to serve no matter what happens in this lawsuit. I've advised that he intends to continue to be a candidate for re-election, and assume that he's going to be elected, and if elected, I've advised that he will serve. Again, any statement to the effect that he's violating any law or that it's illegal for him in any way to serve and to run is not true.
Don't let him get you by. Get caught, got it, boy. That's all I want you to do. We're going to learn how to play the thing. Just get caught. Here we go. Good job. Good job. All right, here we go. Hey, whip up. There we go. Now, what you do wrong? You got under him. You got under him. Here. You got under him. Then what you start doing? You start trying to get your hands on him. If he comes right here, boom, then that ball's going where?
All about right?
There was a low speed thing start out there. Should have been in here a little more toward Eddie's fan.
It would have been very nice if the school board had repudiated the superintendent, but in all honesty, that's a difficult burden for a student to meet, for Jewel Phillips or her attorney to meet. You, in effect, have to ask the school board to repudiate the superintendent. The superintendent put his own prestige on the line here, and unless they're prepared to fire him, then I suppose they're not prepared to repudiate him.
I don't know. They haven't been asked to by anybody, and I suppose they would not be reluctant to, however.
I think there's no question about it that our process of excluding young people from our school system happened to be on trial, not whether Jewel Phillips was right or wrong. I think that in any case of exclusion, suspension should be of last resort, and it should be preceded before any final judgment is rendered by careful counseling and utilization of all the resources that this board has so thoughtfully provided.
I'm not sure that I understand what you mean by police action, but I think it's a step in the right direction to remove the problem child, who is a continual problem and who has been suspended. It's one thing, I think, to put this youngster out on the street or to say take him completely out of school. And perhaps this is not the best answer. We're